Okay, welcome to the show. Today we are gonna talk about the recent events that happened yesterday. Me and Henrykator, we played in the DPL season 4, Duelyst Pro League, and we brought basically the same decks. And today we want to talk a little bit about why we made the deck choices we did, and just the overall experience and strategy. So we'll just start right off with one of our decks. We went with Arjun, Siran, Vath, and Reaver. Not necessarily in that order, but as you can see on the stream, the first deck here is Arjun, and that is basically a old school deck that we played a long time ago with a few changes. Can you run through some of the decisions we made for this deck, Henry?
Yeah, definitely. The main idea is that we, overall in this tournament, didn't want to go with too much aggressive decks. We are under the impression that if you bring too much aggro for a tournament, it gets kind of coin flippy. So that's why we brought this Bond Argent. It's really strong list, and as Monk said, we actually played it in the earlier meta before late December, kind of, and to great success there. We just swapped out 3 Elkians for 3 Trinity Oath. I think that's the only change we actually did here.
I'm actually unsure if we changed in the Asher Heralds for Mystics, maybe?
Yeah, it was Mystic before, now it's Herald. Herald sticks better to the board, and it's, as you also saw in the tournament, that they can actually get Divine Bonded to more effect. It's a small thing, but overall just a sticky 2-drop is really good. Yeah. Still have the slows in this deck, which maybe is a bit not normal to do, but slow is simply too strong. You can make the very powerful Dialys's Opener, and the Forever Loved slow molation is also really good. You don't get that option if you don't have slow in your deck. But as you also see, the main focus of the deck is not to be aggressive per se. You got to have the option to do that, but not necessarily.
Yeah, and especially with Trinity Oath, right? Where you're really spending a lot of mana, or not a lot, but a little bit of mana on your turn to draw some cards, and being able to just slam down the slow to be able to still keep your momentum going. Helps a lot. Right before the tournament, we were discussing having Meltdown in here, but we ended up changing it for Seer.
Which was a good call, if you look back.
Yeah, really.
Because the deck is designed to beat everything but Vath, which is also why we banned Vath during the whole tournament. Our whole lineup is built around banning Vath, actually. And then some people also ask me, but how does this actually fare against Cassava and Vision in general? Because you will always see a lot of Vision in tournaments, which we also did here. I think only one player, except us, didn't bring any Vision at all. And because people are afraid that, oh, but your big threats just get punished. Yeah, sure, but we have 6 big threats that they want to punish. 3 Archers, 1 Elix, and 2 Seer. I mean, they only have that many resources, and at one point they run out. And yeah, so...
And actually, we discussed a lot about Aegis Barrier also before going into the tournament, because we were going to ban Vath, right? And Magma in general, and usually you want to target their Egg-Morph, you want to target their Natural Selection and their Thumping Wave with Aegis Barrier. So when we're banning Vath on Magma, well, why do we keep Aegis Barrier? And that's exactly the point you just made against Abyssian, right? Where they have Punish, they have the ping, but if you're able to put down an Aegis Barrier on a Seer or something, they can't get rid of it. Unless they want to both commit a Dispel and a ping and punish. And then all of a sudden, that's a lot of resources spent on one card, right?
Exactly. And Seer, a lot of people make the point that, yeah, but you can just silence him pretty easily. But then it's still a 5/12. I think it's the most highly statted minion for 7 mana in the game, more or less. Or correct me if I'm wrong, but it's definitely up there for 7 mana. I don't think there are other 7 mana 5/12s.
No.
And so you still have him for the Divine Bond afterwards. He really did a good job in this tournament.
Yeah.
But this is an old school deck, more or less, that we also played before, and it's not that revolutionary. But
yeah, the only new card is really the Trinity Oath, right? It's kind of an obvious go-to. It's just overall solid deck that performs well against the meta. And also it can beat Siran, which is super strong right now.
Yeah.
So, should we just move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's do that.
So, this is Siran Sunforge, and basically this deck is straight up Suture's list, which Tundra No Caps claims that Such took his list and then changed one Dismate for a Sunriser, but it's one card difference. Basically, it's a known list already. It's not something we came up with. We just played it a lot to figure out, okay, is it actually strong? And we found that Siran right now is insane.
Yeah, we also talked about Trinity Oath is really what keeps this deck going. Without the Oath, we're not really sure that it would be so strong. You really need that hand refill at one point. It's also to get all your combo pieces together. The thing is, all the individual cards in the Siran deck, they're not particularly OP or powerful, but they need to be together in order to work. And that's where Trinity Oath comes in handy, since it makes you get your pieces in your hand all the time, while still adding all the heal synergy, which Siran lacked before.
Yeah, Oath is definitely a carry for this deck. I also think that it took a little bit of time for people to figure out that we don't actually want the lion in here, we just want the healing and big bodies, right? And I think that's really what took about a month or so into the expansion before we actually got to see this list, a strong Siran, which is actually really strong.
Definitely. It has been doing so well in tournaments lately, not just for us, but in general. The whole January we have seen dominating Sirans everywhere, and for good reason. It's really a solid deck, and since the meta is so aggressive, or at least it was before the Entropic Gaze nerf, Siran is one of the decks that can out-heal all that burst to good effect.
Yeah, we saw it in one of your games, I think, where you hit a meltdown with 7 attack and healed above like more than 7 health that turn. So you ended up on more health than before you hit the meltdown. That's super stupid. But it's overall just that it seems like right now the strong decks can have a strong early game, but can curve out into the late game and keep going with meltdown and Trinity Oath and Ironcliff and stuff like that, right? It's basically the same concept as the Argent, where you have Siran. No, not Seer. You have Seer, right? Seer, Ironcliff, and the Oaths. You have the same amount of threats late game, but you also have the strong early game. So,
and the survival of the healing. That's really helpful.
Definitely. But overall, a super strong deck.
Yeah.
So the next one is our Wrath deck, and me and Henrykator have slightly different lineups, lists for this. This is the only deck where there's a little bit of change. I think Henrykator went with 2, what's it called?
2 of the sisters.
Yeah. It's not Kalino. What is it?
No, it's Tegedi.
Tegedi, yeah, exactly. 2 Tegedis instead of 1 Sunsteel and 1 Healing Mystic. But overall, the concept of the deck is the same. It's all about tempo. There's no draw in the deck, so you have to finish the game before you get to that stage where you are in need of more cards, right?
Yeah, but it's also pretty good on the late game curve, in the fact that late game you just drop 1 minion. It doesn't feel like card draw is necessary in this kind of deck. In the end, you just need to smash them, and you have the Fractal, which works great with both Grovelion, Mandrake, and of course Drogon. I think we didn't get the Drogon Fractal Replication combo off in the tournament here.
No.
But I won 2 of my games with just dropping a Drogon, Hero Power, or Bloodborne spell, sorry, and then Cryptographer and Bloodborne spell again. To one of the games was 30 attack, and the other one was 18. But it's just a really strong deck.
Yeah, it's an evolution of a deck we played also way back before the newest expansion that did really well. And with the addition of Cryptographer, it really makes Wrath super strong and like fueled the inclusion of Groveline, because she got that additional extra attack early on that can remove all the early minions and not just past turn 4.
Exactly.
I think
should be in every Wrath deck. I think having the 3 attack early is really strong.
It's super good, and it's also just a free drop that you can play, right? It goes like it's a 2-drop you can play early, try to curve, maybe get that mana to use your ability. But it's also a free drop you can start out with if you're going second, which Wrath didn't really have. Otherwise, the free Plasma Storms is a meta call because it beats everything in the meta right now. It beats Swarm Lilith, it beats Casva with their Kalinos in the corners. It beats Siran. It's really the only hard counter to Siran right now, I would say.
That also means Argent, basically.
Yeah.
Unless they buff up their Iron Cliffs.
Yeah, Argent can give attack, so it's not completely the same.
But it takes all of Siran's stuff. Sunriser, Scintilla, Sunforge Lancer, all the stuff, and Iron Cliff, obviously.
Exactly.
And overall, just a really, really strong. You need to be patient while playing this deck. You don't need to go full face. You will probably eventually smash him in the face late game for damage, or win by spamming Mandrakes with Fractal Replication.
Yeah, it's all about keeping the pressure up, right?
Yeah, I got my Tagetis in there for those of you that are wondering why did I choose them. It's my experience in tournaments, as I said, that there will be a lot of ambition. And ambition is the only class where both generals consistently run a battle pit. I'm not considering packs here because we don't see so much mature, since it's a little bit mediocre compared to the other factions right now, in my opinion at least, and in a lot of people's opinions, I'm sure. But they run the ooze consistently. And it is my experience that people think that Casava is, in general, a good starter at tournaments. So I kind of called that they would start with Ambition every time when I got to start with Magmar, and this is where Tageti comes in. One game, my Tageti took out 2 oozes for free and dealt 6 damage to the enemy general, which kind of made a good start already there. And it makes the opponent think as well. If they don't have a direct answer, they need to make subpar plays to play around Tageti. And that's why I chose this card. I don't know which list is better. I think it's just a little tweak or tech or something.
Yeah.
A personal call that I like to play Tageti.
But you're the only one who really got to play Wrath in the tournament, as my Wrath was spent all the time. So it's a strong deck on ladder for sure. It probably works in tournaments as well, I can't say, but
well, it worked pretty well for me. I didn't drop a Magma game in the whole tournament.
Okay, nice. So that's it for this deck. I think the only thing to keep note of outside of that, maybe Flash Reincarnation on 2, is basically just an optimization choice where we played it on 3 and it was dead too often, so we cut it down to 2 and now it works better. So
yeah, especially in a deck without draw.
Yeah.
The thing you really do not want to see is in a top decking situation, you get your Flash Reincarnation. That's pretty much the worst you can get if you're top decking. But we didn't want that to happen. Yeah.
So that's about it for that deck.
Questions in the chat, and I'll also try to.
Yeah, sure.
During our discussion, and also for after, we might do a Reddit post with the deck list, so you can actually get the link and see them. But yeah, should we move on to the Reaver list?
I already did.
You did? Perfect.
So this Reaver deck is one that you made long a time ago, just right when the expansion dropped. We made something close to this, but not exactly.
A little more spell focused. Back then we had the Songhai's sister. Don't remember what she's called.
Alcyone or something.
Yeah, Alcyone. And it was a bit too gimmicky somehow. Didn't have enough power and finish. It was about making more spell damage to just exactly being able to clear and so on.
Yeah.
Now we tweaked it to have still the control elements, but having the very good Songhai burst combos of killing edge plus inner focus and stuff like that. And Sendo is just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. as you also saw in the tournament, he was a real MVP during the whole time. Things that alters position in general is really good because it makes your opponent do subpar plays. And during the afternoon yesterday, we decided to put in Meltdown in the deck, and that was amazing. This call, it really did work for us. After you have a Geomancer played, you can do a Phoenix Fire while you have a Meltdown on 9 mana, and it's actually 10 damage to the enemy general. It's a pretty cool finisher.
Or you can clear whatever minion is in the way, right? So you can guarantee that 7 damage hits. I think Silhouette Tracer was also a last-minute decision.
What did we have in there before? We tried some different stuff. In the beginning it was Cyclone Mask, and that was good, but since the meta is a bit smash, it's when they're in your face, Cyclone Mask, it's pretty bad, to be honest.
Yeah.
And you can usually only get to use Cyclone Mask for 1 or 2 turns until they are in your face, because you need to play super defensively and oftentimes give the mana to your opponent, which was a bit bad. And then we tried Mana Forger. Didn't really work because most spells are very conditional. They need a specific scenario for them to work. It's not like in Vitruvian, for example, where I made my Sage list with Mana Forger. There you can always use it for the wishes and stuff. Here it doesn't always make sense to just play a Ghost Lightning because it's free. And then we ended up at Silhouette Tracer, since it can really give you some room for your clock, your Geomancer clock, and make you get away and make good sendos, and a lot of ability.
The deck really wins by staying away from the enemy. You put down your ranged guys, you Phoenix Fire the minions, you Phoenix Fire the face while you run away. So Silhouette Tracer was actually kind of natural. It fit in there, and it's kind of fun that we didn't add it in earlier.
Me one game for sure against Armoria, where I would just die when he had 2 Klaxons on me, and then I could just Silhouette Tracer, run to the corner, and then slowly but surely Phoenix Fire him down.
Yeah.
It's a really good utility card, and this deck, I gotta say, is the most fun to play. I think it's really, there are so many decisions in this deck that you have to do, and really manage your resources well, because you have only a set amount of removal, and you have some very specific targets that you want to remove. So you need to decide, should I use my Phoenix Fires now? Should I save them? What if a Kalino comes down next turn? What should I do? And so on. So every turn is like a puzzle, kind of, it seems. But overall, strong deck. We thought going in that Reverb would be the Achilles heel of our lineup, because we were really sure about the last deck. But in the end, it actually seems to work out fine. I think I only dropped 1 Reva match in the mirror, and then of course in the finals versus Monk when we played together.
But at that point, one of us had to drop a match, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's really.
I think some of the interesting choices for this deck compared to normal Reaver is why we only run 2 Killing Edges and 2 Inner Focuses. Can you shed some light on those decisions?
Because this deck is not a spell aggro Reaver deck like we see with the Chakra avatars with all this stuff, and Kataras. We don't run that stuff. Here we have the option to burst with Killing Edge Inner Focus if we need to, but it's more of a removal tool as well. And then Killing Edge has amazing synergy with Sendo in the late game. If a Sendo sticks and you put a Killing Edge on him, he can do 19 damage on his own.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Or 16, I mean.
Yeah.
But that's really strong. And Killing Edge at Fox is just good. Killing Edge and Inner Focus are just good Songhai cards. Sometimes when you make a deck and you want to make it a bit niche, like this Control Spear High deck, you think, but okay, I don't want it to be aggro, so I shouldn't play Inner Focus Killing Edge. But in the end, they are just really good, right?
Yeah.
Same as saying, if you want to make a Control Magmar deck, then why do you want to run Macantor? It's an aggressive card, also control-y, obviously. But it's just too good to not run, and that's why we run Inner Focus Killing Edge, I would say.
But we found that because of Geomancer, eventually 3 of each was too much, because at some point we removed the option of making this little 1/1 Heartseeker guy.
It's really good to use on Key Beholder as well, gotta say. a key beholder inner focus start going second and killing the 2-drop is a good thing. So that's also, and of course the Fox inner focus is a thing as well.
Yeah. So I think that wraps it up for the decks.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna move on to some of the matchup that we encountered throughout the tournament.
Yeah, and the thought process behind what do we do in a tournament? How do we decide which faction to ban if there's a ban? And how do we decide, which deck to start with and why?
Yeah.
That's something that can be interesting to know, our thought process behind.
So going into the tournament, our strategy for our lineup was basically to ban Magmar, more specifically Wrath, because that's the strongest of the two. Because they have the counterplay to Saran, they have counterplay to what's it called? Argent as well, with the AoE Plasma Storm. And overall, Wrath is just super hard to play against, also as Reaver, because you want to kite around, but if you just get hit one time for super high damage by Wrath, you're out.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We expect the people to play, if they were playing Wrath, we expect them to not play our variant, but a more aggressive variant with Tigers and maybe Elucidators and buffs.
Yeah, the Great Fortitude is that's really strong as well. And we wanted to lock out the aggressive decks because we have the more control-y decks. We want to be in charge of what is happening in our matches, and that's really hard if you are on the clock by an aggressive deck or aggressive dinosaur man in your face, maybe 20 damage. We simply wanted to avoid that.
Yeah.
So
it's also a call because Wrath is just super strong right now. Even after the nerf, you can see here how many people actually brought Magmar. Even Starhorn after the nerf seems like it's a weird pick, but it's still a strong card.
Yeah.
So should we just go through each and every one of them?
Yeah, let's do that.
So
I played against Dragal first.
Yeah.
Cassiva, Reaver, Argent, Wrath. And we obviously decided to ban Wrath because that's our strategy. All of our decks have really good AoE removal, I would say, except maybe the Reaver deck. And they match up good against Ambition in general. And I played my Wrath into his Cassiva first. And that went well, just a one-hit OTK in the end.
Yeah.
And against Reaver, I played Siran, I believe. And Siran versus Reaver is... No, I didn't play Siran. He banned my Siran. That's true. I don't really remember, actually.
Played Argent, maybe?
Yeah, I think I played Argent versus Reaver, which is a good matchup. I just chain provoked him. And Reaver cannot do much if she cannot get away.
Yeah.
And provokes. And she needs the Onyx Bear Seals for the big threats. And if she doesn't have those, she just loses to provokes and Holy Immolation damage, Divine Bond, you name it.
Yeah.
And so the last deck then, that must be Reaver. So I played Reaver versus his Cassiva. He thought that his Cassiva was good versus Reaver, I suppose, because in general it can be, because the BBS of Cassiva counters the BBS of Reaver pretty well. But because of Geomancer, we can make some new rules, kind of. And all of a sudden, his hero power is not so valuable when he cannot kill Heartseekers all the time.
And it's also important to note that the Kalinos can't heal when you have Geomancer up, right? You can if you can get your distance and just fireball them in the face, Phoenix Fire, of course. There's no way for them to heal because you can just have no minions on the board and still deal damage directly.
Exactly. Then Kalino becomes obsolete.
Yeah.
And that's really good. That's also partly why we picked this Reaver list, because it doesn't have such a really hard counter except Magmar.
Yeah.
You can run away more easily, and you're not reliant on your burst combos, and you don't die instantly if they heal, because you can always put them on this Geomancer clock and kite them around forever with Sendo. And it's really good.
So basically, after the recent nerf on Entropic Gaze, we thought that Starhorn wouldn't be that threatening, that strong. So after banning Wrath, our second priority was Fae, basically.
Yeah, Faye is to play against, and she counters stuff pretty well. She also has this natural clock, as you know, with the Warbird, which really puts you in a situation where you have to kill her fast. And then there are annoying cards like Concealing Shroud. You really don't want to run into that.
Also just Enfeeble, because a lot of our decks are this mid-range control type, where we want to slowly but surely dominate the board and win over with good trades and push pressure with big minions, right? Our Vath deck has Fractal Replication, which would play right into Faye's Enfeeble. And our Arjun and Saran is all about having big minions stick on the board to be able to either combo with Divine Bond or combo with the healing synergies with Scintilla. So Faye's Enfeeble just destroys our lineup, kind of in the same way that Plasma Storm does it.
Yeah.
So
they will also always run Scorn, these Faye decks, and exactly. Scorn is also pretty good against our Reaver deck. Maybe not so much against Siran and Arjun, but against Reaver, Scorn is really hard to kill.
Yeah.
Enfeeble is an unfair card somehow. We'll also talk about that later when we talk about balancing and stuff.
Yeah.
It can nullify the board state for 3 mana, which is not something that should be possible. So we just banned out what we thought we didn't want to reach in this case, even though Arjun and Siran in general probably fares okay against Faye. You really don't want to take the chance that they get a sick Enfeeble and then just win from that part.
And it's actually pretty lucky for us, I think, if you look down the list, that there's not a single enemy that plays both Vath and Faye at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, we did the jackpot there.
Yeah, exactly. So I was playing against our hacker. I banned Faye versus him. He had Syrinx, which I basically farmed.
Mm-hmm.
Syrinx, you can see only our hacker brought it, and we would argue that it's the weakest deck right now, maybe outside of Kara, but like that faction as a whole, Vitruvian has 2 weak generals that isn't really on par right now. So I found his Syrinx really didn't get to see much of anything of his other decks. You played against Armora, right?
Yeah, that was one of the most epic matches I've played. And those of you that watched the stream yesterday, you will also know that those were some really intense matches.
Yeah.
I also banned Faye here because of the same reasons we already said. And he had double Ambition, which I thought it's actually pretty good because our decks are designed to beat Ambition. But the Lilith versus Siran game I had with him, he got a little bit lucky with getting an Iron Cliff from Reaper of the Nine Moons. I really disliked Reaper of the Nine Moons as a card. The design of it is one of the only choices of unhealthy RNG in the game, together with Chrysalis Burst, where you can get incredibly lucky, or you can be completely useless.
Yeah.
He got an Iron Cliff off of it, then followed that up by a Nether Summoning, getting the Reaper of the Nine Moons back. Luckily, the next one, he got only an Azure Herald out of it. And then, we just went to each side of the board and stalled out forever.
But in general, we should have a pretty good time against Lilith, right? We have the Reaver with 3 Ghost Lightning and 2...
All of our decks have a bunch of AoE inside,
yeah.
Which and we always play Double Tempest in all our Argent lists. Yeah. It's necessary to keep the swarm down. The Lilith nowadays, not so much our Moriar's deck, but we didn't know that beforehand, obviously. But they are very much all in on the swarm. If you let them have 3 or more minions one turn, you are probably dead from their Deathwatch synergies.
Yeah.
And that's why we have the AoE. If you just nullify the board state every turn, then Lilith cannot really do so much with her swarm stuff.
Yeah. So even you have to counter it with AoE, but if you can't, you lose, and that's why I still put Lilith quite high right now in the meta with Feroz and Cryptographer.
You have some sick openings. Variax is probably not as good anymore, but the Swarm Lilith in general is still strong, I would say.
Yeah.
You really need to have the AoE, otherwise you lose. You need to keep your AoE on your starting hand as well, even though it feels sometimes bad to keep Tempest in some matchups, but against Lilith, you need to do that.
Yeah. So neither of us encountered Neodog or Colas. They were, I guess, defeated by some other players before we got to run into them. But the strategy there would also be just to ban Faye out.
Yeah, ban Faye definitely.
Yeah. I went against Mr. Enderman and basically just going with our default tactic, I banned out Wrath, and that worked just as well. I was contemplating banning Siran because, as we mentioned in our deck segment, Siran is super strong as well, but Wrath is still like the deck that we designed around. So, and obviously against Henrykator in the end, me and him, we banned each other's Wraths. So
yeah, Wrath counters our lineups. Yeah. That's my strong.
It was actually interesting. We banned Wrath, and everybody else banned Wrath against us.
Except almost. I
think there was a couple
that didn't. And my Argent instead.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, I believe Drakel did the same because I played Wrath 2 times.
Yeah, okay. So
I did? No. Royale banned Wrath. Yeah. I played only Wrath against. No, I must have played Wrath against Armoria because I won the first match. Cassava, Wrath. Yeah. I played Wrath 2 times.
So that's definitely a high priority ban for most people. Not all strategies, but kind of interesting, definitely.
In the tournament meta right now, I also had a little conversation with Pylons about that. Cassava is a general we always see in tournaments, but it seems maybe her time of glory has passed a little bit. In the tournament meta, she's still a strong general, but she has some counters, and it's not that impossible to beat anymore, I would say. At least I think I didn't drop a single game to Cassava in this tournament, and you obviously didn't drop any games at all, so it's the same for you.
Yeah.
I think that the matchups.
Yeah, I think that's it for the matchups. Now we're gonna talk a little bit about the patch 1.8 or 80, and some of the changes that were made, and if we agreed or didn't agree, or just how that influences the meta. So the first change was to Grandmaster Variax, where they basically increased the mana cost by 1 and the attack and health by 1 as well.
Yeah, and I think that was a good change. Variax's effect is super strong, and being able to get it out on turn 5 with Darkfire Sacrifice is really strong, especially since it's 5 mana is a slot where you usually have some breathing room to play that. Yeah. Whereas 6 mana you have a lot of other stuff you want to do, playing for example Warple Reaver or whatever it can be. Because now you can get it out in 6 with 1 Darkfire Sacrifice. It makes a huge difference this one turn. I think it was a really good change. If their priority was that they didn't want to change the card completely, I think this is a good way to
to side nerf it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's the same we saw with Senrui, I think, where moving it from 5 to 6 really has a giant impact. And I think it's basically about how your mana ramping works, and with the mana crystals on the board, that 5 is way more accessible than 6 for a player.
Second example, you can get 5 mana on your second turn in theory.
Yeah.
And you just cannot get 6 very easily. Very rarely you can get 2 mana tiles, but it's not consistent enough.
Yeah, exactly. So before...
And dropping... go ahead.
Okay, before at 7 mana, I was able to run a pretty strong list. I know that a lot of people didn't think that Variax was actually competitively viable, but I had a list deck with 80+% win rate that also won me a melee tournament, like across 100 or so games. So I definitely thought that Variax was super strong before, but now I tried the list with the new version. I don't think that Variax is competitively viable anymore, which I also think is a good thing, because it kind of
rules out all other control decks.
Yeah, exactly, and it just it removes the entire advantage game that you are trying to play against your opponent, where I'm trying to get one kill here and my guy survives, and I'm trying to build up this the little advantages here and there, where after you play Varix, it just doesn't matter anymore. There's no comeback, there's no hope anymore. It's really boring to watch.
Just wait and then slowly swarm your stuff across the field.
Yeah, exactly.
No one can outvalue that. The only thing I could think of is probably a Silithar Elder in the corner.
Yeah.
Can outvalue, but that's literally the only thing.
And Silithar Elder, right? It's kind of the same, but it's still way different because you can dispel that minion.
Yeah, you can just stop it from working. Variax comes out. That's it. You the effect all the time.
Then you have to kill them, or you are going to die. So
you can play this card. It's not completely useless because the effect is so strong. But now it's not so.
It's not all in on Variax.
Exactly. Yeah. So I like this change. I think that maybe sums it up. Or do we have something to add?
No, I like the change as well. Overall, just making it less competitive. The only thing though is it might still be rage-inducing at low tiers of play, like silver and gold and the like. So I'm unsure if it's a good change in that way, but let's see. At least on the competitive level, it's a good change.
Definitely.
Yeah. So the other change that was made was Entropic Gaze. Changed from 4 damage to 2 damage. And
that's a change. It was stupid before, literally. Yeah, it's a 4 damage spell that cycles, and you ran it in so aggressive decks that you really didn't care if your opponent was drawing as well. It's just a good change, I think. Some people say it's over nerfed. I don't know. I still think it works fine in Starhorn if you want to run that archetype. But now at least you don't automatically add it in every Magma deck in the game because it's so strong.
And now it's a combo card, right? More so than just a stable.
Yeah, because before you could saw Magmas just run 2 tiles in front on the first turn, drop Entropic Gaze. Already there, it's something like 20% of your HP, almost 20% of your HP for 2 mana. That's a bit sick.
And it's also just not fun to play against when you're trying to taunt up, trying to put some provokes up, trying to get yourself out of range. It doesn't matter. The board doesn't really matter when they're playing Entropic Gaze. They're just nuking you for 12 damage from the other side of the board. And I think Tectonic Spike still has a little bit of that problem with Decimus, but removing Entropic Gaze definitely make that strategy less viable overall.
It helps because now you know that the Decimus combo is coming, and that's the main burst of that deck. So if you just stay above 11 HP, or above 11, not 11 itself, then you're pretty safe. Because that's what they can do, and that's it. And I like that. I think the way that we like to see Duelyst is it's a game where board control matters. That's also what you saw from our deck lists. We like to play decks that interact with the board and removes minions and builds up your own board, and not this damage out of the behind where you don't really do anything except sitting back and then just burning slowly but surely. That's not fun, in my opinion, to play that. Then I would play Hearthstone if I wanted some stupid stuff. Duelyst is a tactical game, not some kind of roulette machine where you get lucky in drawing your burn or you lose if the opponent has heal. I don't know.
We basically want positioning to matter, right? Like the choices we make should matter. It shouldn't not matter if you put your minion one place or another. So, but those were the changes that were made in the patch. And overall, if you had to say 2 changes, you could maximum change 2 things. That would be those 2 cards, right? To improve the meta.
Those are the 2 most important cards.
Yeah, definitely. So the next segment, we will go through a few cards that we think could use a change. We're not saying that this is the correct change or that that this, like we're not balance designers right now. We're only like theorizing how it looks from our perspective, and
also at the back of this tournament, we saw these cards being used and we used them ourselves.
Yeah.
So we have some thoughts on those, and we're not like some other people on Reddit bashing counterplay games for not being able to balance and all that. Not at all, actually.
No.
I think the game is super fun. I had a great tournament, but it's also okay to talk about cards, because if you are not being having a critical mindset about things, then things won't change at all.
Yeah.
So it's good to talk.
And also, I think our mindset is not as much we want perfect balance, but more that we just want regular changes, so that the meta is always evolving. There's never just one deck you have to play, but you're always thinking, hey, how can I improve my deck compared to the changes that we just got? So at least we played Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's our mindset from there, where they had a ban list. They banned a bunch of cards, and sometimes they unbanned some other cards. And it wasn't always the correct choice, but the fun part was to like kind of game the system, right?
Something refreshing. That's
exactly
what we're looking for. Always keeping the meta fresh. Not always, but at least once a month. That's also why we are sad to see the monthly cards gone.
Yeah.
Because they really mixed up things. A lot of cards of the monthly cards are some of the best designed cards, in my opinion. We see Groveline, for example, definitely a usable card and so unique. We see Blistering Scorn, very impactful.
Sunset Paragon.
Sunset Paragon was a monthly, and Azure Herald is also seeing play, also monthly. A lot of these monthlies are just amazing for. And Night Watcher is a card that I think is good.
Yeah, really good for the meta as well.
Does not approve, but I think it's a good card for adding a new mechanic into the game, basically, that makes it fresh, and another card you need to play around. Yeah, that's interesting.
So with the removal of monthly cards, we basically want just changes to happen more often. It doesn't have to be perfect. So
it has to be said that Monk and I, we are always competitive when it comes to card games. So we always like the ranked portion of the game to be interesting.
Yeah.
We're not saying that stuff like boss battles or the new game mode is, what can you say, it's not a bad choice to go all in on those things, but those things won't really mix up well with the competitive scene. They won't make any difference at all. It's good for newer players and more casual players to have something fun to do.
Yeah.
But I hope CBT doesn't go too far away from also keeping the ranked scene balanced. In the end, that's, for a lot of people, that's the
balanced
main.
And varied, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we explained ourselves here, so we'll just go up to some of the card changes we've been thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, we have Enfeeble. And Enfeeble is basically just, it ignores a lot of what happens on the board. The trades back and forth, the tempo game, it just doesn't care. Like we already have AoE like Tempest and what's it called? Free damage everything. Yeah, Frostburn, and we have Plasma Storm and things like that is fine, because it counters a lot of small guys, and then we have hard removal that counters single big guys, right?
Yeah, whereas Enfeeble takes everything.
Yeah, it doesn't care. There's no counterplay. It always just removes whatever you're trying to do.
But it does hit your own minions. That's also why we see Phase. She doesn't really play any minions usually. Not very important minions, at least. And that's why we think if you put it at 4 mana, that could be something that makes it a little bit more balanced, so you cannot always squeeze it in. And
exactly.
One way to do it, if you don't want to redesign the whole card, then that's one way to look at Enfeeble. I think that if you make 1 mana more expensive, it gets harder to fit it in, because just using Enfeeble on your turn and clearing everything still gives the opponent an opportunity to fill up the board again, because you cannot develop something with the Enfeeble.
Yeah.
But if you can just drop Enfeeble and then drop a bunch of minions afterwards, that's where the issue comes in.
That's when it feels unfair.
Yeah.
So that's our proposed change. It's overall the changes we're making are small changes. We're not completely reworking a card, nothing like that.
Yeah, that would not be necessary in most cases. I think we already saw that how Variax changed just by getting 1 mana cost increase, and that way you still keep the same card, but you doesn't feel so stupid to play against. Like, I really think that Enfeeble is quite stupid, honestly.
Yeah.
It's too strong. It's not very interactive.
Yeah, man. Also, just purely power level, compare it to other cards like Egmorph, right? Where Enfeeble hits everything, and you don't have to kill it right away, so you don't have to be in range of it. Whereas Egmorph also dispels the minion, so they have each their own positive. But when Enfeeble is then 1 mana cheaper as well, it kind of feels unfair, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's our.
We'll go over this quite quickly,
because exactly.
It's theoretical and probably nothing will really change, but maybe you can.
Yeah. So the second one is Thumping Wave, and that's, I don't know if that is more my own preferences, but Thumping Wave is already super good because it can do multiple things. It's a control card. You can remove something with a strong effect, as well as a burst card. But when you're seeing Starhorn played, it's only used as a burst card. So why do we have a card that is good at 2 things, but also super good at each of those things individually, right?
Exactly.
So we want to tune back a little bit of the burst power. Like we mentioned earlier, we want the game to be about what is happening on the board, the interaction between the players, and that positioning matters. And it's really not that fun when your opponent can just play a Tiger and a Thumping Wave. That's 6 mana, 8 damage out of hands. That's like a third of your health, right?
Yeah, approximately a third of your health for 6 mana. That's very strong.
Yeah, and there's like...
There's a little bit of counterplay to Thumping Wave, because you can make a perfect protect with provokes in comparison to Entropic Gaze. But then you also have the point that Thumping Wave can also be used as a removal tool.
Yeah.
Overall, just it has to be tweaked down a little bit, we think, in order to become balanced. It's like
I really love the card because there's so many different things you can do. I have often used it on a 2/3 Healing Mystic or something, where you get in the additional attack and then you also heal it up to a 3/3 afterwards, right? There's so many different plays you can make with Thumping Wave, so it's really interesting, but we feel that the power level is too high. And then also the designer in me is kind of annoyed that you have a 3 mana card that converts a minion into a 3/3, but gives 5 attack, right? It's more clean to have everything be 3/3 on the card. It's just more pleasing.
The same for Tectonic Spikes. It's also 3/3/3.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some pleasingness in there as well. This card was probably our highest priority before the latest expansion to change, I think.
Yeah. But now that Gaze has changed, it's back on the radar for us.
Yeah, exactly. And we love Magma, so you can take our word for it. The last one is Trinity Oath.
Yeah, Trinity Oath in this tournament did so much work, and it feels like you don't really have to manage your resources that well that you would usually do, because you have the opportunity to just swarm, and then next turn, you can heal up and then get a full hand again.
Yeah.
And the thing that we really wanted to talk about with this card is that if you compare it to Heaven's Eclipse, which is 5 mana, does draw you 3 spells but no healing, and also Divine Spark, which is 3 mana, draws you 2 cards but does nothing more, then it feels a bit like Trinity Oath is just stronger with the healing.
It's also just unfair because you're having it in a deck that has already the strongest minions in the game, right? That's the idea of Lionheart, to have strong minions, and then you also give them the strongest draw card in the game, so you're not even punished for overcommitting on your minions in general. And that's what we want to change. We want we want the game to feel more fair and not just, hey, I'm running low on cards now, Trinity Oath, and now I can swarm the board again.
And the healing part is just ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're also getting healed, yeah. And heal, you're thinking, 3 health is not that much, but it is. You have Asher Herald, a 2-drop with no effect except just for healing. And you play it for healing. Healing is important in this game because
10% of your general's maximum health. You can also look at it that way.
Exactly.
That's a lot. and you also get the full hand. And yeah, it's a strong card. And in comparison to the other factions' draw cards, it seems stronger, just if you look at them.
Yeah, and really,
not all factions should be the same, obviously, but this might be a bit too much.
Yeah, it's for me, it's basically that Lion-R, why did they even need a draw card to begin with? They have strong curvy minions that they could play, and they had Solarius, which really fitted more to their.
Solarius was played in the meta before the Bloodborne expansion.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have Divine Spark, like I mentioned earlier, where you're drawing 2, right? So you're thinking, 2 to 3, that's 1 mana, but that doesn't really make sense because Divine Spark, you're playing the card itself, so you're getting +1, right? But with Trinity Oath, you're getting +2. So in order for Divine Spark to have the same level, you need to play 2 Divine Sparks, gives you +2, which is the same as Trinity Oath. But then you're playing 6 mana and not getting the healing as well. And we saw that like Cyrix and Vitruvian in general, they had Divine Spark before on 2 mana, but that was changed. But that's exactly the same power level as Trinity Oath. So it's actually surprised that there isn't more uproar about Trinity Oath.
People seem to think that it's okay, but Lion-R, at least I started playing in late November and last year, and Lion-R has always been on top. It doesn't seem like the faction that really needs more strong cards, but
yeah. So we proposed 2 changes. One is a simple one, just increase the mana, so it's more closely related to just the power of draw cards in general. Like you have
the opportunity to on 9 mana drop the Trinity Oath, and then you drop a 2-drop and a 3-drop after.
Yeah, exactly. So it's still better than what's it called, Riva and Kalios' draw card, because you're getting the health right. And Riva and Kalios is all about spamming, so it feels like their draw card should be stronger overall. So yeah, that's one proposed change. The second is the Trinity Oath, where we basically downgrade it, so it doesn't become this big refill, but more like a tempo draw card instead, where you can
heal for synergies.
Yeah, you can more easily activate the heal for synergy. But you're not getting, I can just empty my hand and refill it with Trinity Oath. It's more on Divine Spark's power level.
While still the 2 health to just justify Siran that she has a combo with it. Yeah.
So that's our show, I guess, for today.
Yeah.
We tried to keep it short.
Yeah. Feel free to also ask questions if you want, if you're curious. I think I will start streaming maybe in the middle of next week a little bit. I have a full-time job, so that makes it a little bit hard, but I would like to squeeze in 1.5 hours per night at least, or 2 hours maybe. That could be cool. It would be approximately 7 till 9 Central European time. So for those of you that are interested, then I will probably drop a Reddit post if it happens, and then see.
Yeah, I'm interested. And we'll. I think our plan is to keep this show up a little bit more, to maybe follow the tournament scene, talk about what we're doing, like we did today with our deck list and such.
We're trying to participate in as many tournaments as possible. Really, Duelyst has a really cool tournament scene. The admins are great, and actually a lot of stuff is happening, even though the game is not as big as a game like Hearthstone. I think that what do we have now? We have a Tuesday Melee, we have some Friday smaller tournament for newer players sometimes, and then we have the Sunday Fight Night, and usually something is happening on Saturday as well. And the DPL is going, and then we have the qualifier for Worlds, which we'll both attend, the next one in next weekend.
Yeah.
We'll both attend that. And probably also do a roundup after that of how we went and what we did.
Yeah. So we want to keep it a little bit short. So I think this video was approximately 1 hour. Should be more digestible than the last one we did. If you want to watch the VOD, VOD, video on demand, it should be here on this Twitch channel. Otherwise, you can find it at MunkBusiness Gaming on YouTube, which I will link, I guess, after I upload this. So we're just going to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the show.